and ask who it is you're torturing?
It is not torture to safeguard the future.
Bullshit! I've seen what becomes of your experiments. That is not a cure. It is beyond torture. They lose every remnant of themselves after you've had your way with them. And there is no way to live. Your cure isn't worth the cost!
It may be. One day. Even now, I am content with the results, given the alternative.
And what about him? The man you're operating on right now? Have you considered what cure he'll settle for? What costs he'll accept? Of course not. You just poke and prod and twist everything inside until you feel the disease is eradicated. But so is the man! What's the point in a cure if nothing of us remains?
What was his name? This subject? This person?
Gregory Sline. He was an engineer.
A science none too distant from my own. Man and machine are far more similar than most care to admit. Operations, communication, internal network, fuel and fallibility. How did he die?
Why does it matter?
Because I cannot cure him.
Of course not. He's already dead.
There are no traces of the pestilence in his system. However, there are clear signs of its presence at some point in time prior to death. When Gregory Slime died, he did so cured.
How is that possible?
I am unsure, but the results speak for themselves.
They tell you.
That with perseverance and dedication, a cure may yet be possible. You may remove him. Do not fear. He won't rise again. I have been satiated. For the moment.
What use do you find from your proxies?
Cured. They are invaluable to my research. For starters, their behavior, the very state of being, reflects the effectiveness of my treatments.
And how would you gauge its effectiveness right now?
I have a revival rate of 95%, a key component to eradicating the infection. Living beings cannot survive the shock of being torn from the grips of the pestilence.
And how satisfied are you with the results? How the person survives, and not just the body?
That is a tougher nut to crack. Granted, much of the mind alters as a consequence. And physically there are permanent alterations. But there are benefits.
Benefits? How?
For example, the cured can now detect pestilence carriers and neutralize them.
You mean they kill anyone in their path and rip them apart like animals?
Had they the medical knowledge I possess, perhaps they...
You're brushing what they do aside because they don't have your medical skills?
Regardless, it does not matter. I am still able to perform my part on the cadavers they leave behind.
Right.
Do you need further explanation?
Oh, no, I get it. It's sick and twisted logic, but I understand. I'm almost afraid to ask what isn't justified because of the pestilence. How much you let yourself get away with.
I have no personal gain from any of this.
More subjects to experiment on. Isn't that the only thing you've ever wanted from us? From anyone?
To cure. If I wanted to wipe out all life on Earth, believe me, I could. Very easily.
Alright. Show me there's something behind that mask that isn't just flesh. Has there ever been someone you've not been able to save?
In spite of our opposing views, her betrayal of everything I'd worked so hard to accomplish, I had hoped to save Yolanda. I thought that she, of all people, would be more resilient, that not much of her would perish during the process. But she never did. She never came back. It was as though her spirit refused my services.
This is the second time you've alluded to a soul. Is that something you believe in?
I have no reason to disbelieve it, and I am not blind to the absence of it from those I cure. Or perhaps a more apt term would be suppression.
You mean, you think those people's souls are trapped inside of the cured?
Again, I have not said I believe in such a thing, but I would rather believe the cured still have a chance of returning to their former selves. If their souls have been purged, then that is an impossibility.
Given what you just said, has there ever been someone you have cured, but would have rather let die?
How much do you know of my history?
Everything we've catalogued thus far.
Then you should remember an incident with one of my first doctors from the Foundation staff, Dr. Raymond Ham.
I don't think anyone who knows about you doesn't also know about Ray.
Did you know him?
Not personally, but we had interacted in the past on administrative assignments. He was a good man.
You don't get many like him within the Foundation, it seems.
Try the world.
I haven't talked about him in years. When I did, I mentioned little remorse for his demise. With the addition of time, I have come to understand several truths. The first is that I can sometimes judge one too harshly based on their knowledge and bearing of the pestilence. The other is that I regret taking his life when I did.
When you did?
He might have understood, given time, and I may have also found a breakthrough with his help, developed a vaccine, made the need for terminating a patient to treat a redundancy. But I panicked, and the man paid a terrible price. If souls do exist, I subjected him to a claustrophobic and demeaning existence inside his own body. When your task force put him down, I'd hoped it was quick.
It was.
Good. Now, Site Director, I wish to move on to the next question. This line has run out of avenues.
Are you aware of any SCPs that have the pestilence?
Yes and no. It will be difficult to point out a select few, unless you have several in mind.
Well, why don't we start with 106, the old man.
Oh yes, him. A rather fascinating specimen. I can see why you would link him to the pestilence, and although he does carry the strain with him, his figurative and literal ethereal state is not a result of the infection.
The man literally dissolves metal and melts his way into pocket dimensions. If that is not an advanced case of pestilence infection, then what is?
I have not allowed a full cycle of the pestilence to be completed in any one subject. To do so would be immoral.
To study? Diagnose? What kind of doctor doesn't try to understand what they're treating to the greatest degree?
If you are done, sir, reprimanding me for saving lives once more, perhaps we can move on to another example.
Fine. SCP-008. It's a form of virus that reduces brain function, limits mobility, and increases necrotic decay, all whilst keeping the infected alive. Some refer to it as a zombie plague. Sound familiar?
I believe so, but I can't quite... the one from Russia, correct?
As far as we know. No idea what they're doing with the stuff, but that's where it's from. Any correlation between it and the pestilence?
Hardly. But should the pestilence no longer threaten Earth, my next recommendation would be to purge this 008 from existence.
So you know what it's capable of. What was your takeaway from it?
Limited, given my current priorities, but it did not seem to me to be born of this Earth. And if that is the case, was its arrival here coincidence? A mistake? Or a calculated move?
I suppose that's a mystery for the Russians to worry about. Alright. What about an inanimate object, like 079?
The intelligent machine, not insofar as I know, but there is every chance that it may be an unwitting puppet of the pestilence's design.
But how? He's a computer.
Do not underestimate where the pestilence may strike from. Even my senses cannot detect it at all times, and it is so very clever. Who knows which shape it will take next?
Right. I guess. How's about your old friend, 035?
Friend, if he says so. Again, it is a difficult affliction to diagnose in things, such as him.
But what about the black goo? Surely that has to be something related to the pestilence.
Is that what he told you? It is true that there are trace levels of pestilence in his excrement, but dormant levels. Nothing I can do anything with. But the mask himself holds no pestilence so far as I can tell.
Just like 079?
Yes.
Alright then. Now, 343. God, so he claims.
I do not believe I have had any interactions with such an individual. And they say they are a deity.
The deity. The only one, according to him.
After the experiences of my life, I have little evidence to believe a god could be responsible for so much suffering. The vastness of his egotism.
Set the kettle to the pot.
Pardon?
Nothing.
In any case, if they are a living creature, it is more than likely the pestilence has them in its grasp as well.
Such a shame. Well, that leaves one last candidate. SCP-001. Thoughts? You do know the one I am referring to?
Yes. I can only hope it does not have the pestilence in its system.
Why is that?
If so, my work is meaningless, as is the function of all life.
Understood. Get that?
Yep.
.035 spoke about how he accompanied you across Europe during the spread of the Black Plague. He said that not only were you able to resurrect the dead and injured to perfect health, but that you wore him on occasion.
Dio does have a wicked imagination for storytelling. What tale did he weave this time? Was he the reincarnation of Apophis? An embodiment of Loki? Was I an accomplice in his duplicitous acts? Or were we rivals? Friends or foes?
He said...
Madam, anything he says is neither truth nor lie. Reality simply does not matter to a creature of his habit.
Well then, what is your recollection of 035?
I had picked up the scent of a pestilence mass across Europe, growing in size. My path led me through Bosnia, where I encountered 035 on a merchant train.
Right, 035 said he had been abandoned in an attack.
No such attack took place. He was not a forgotten trinket on the roadside. He was running one of the stalls. As soon as he laid eyes on me, he flagged me down. You seem like an individual looking for a cure to all your problems, he quipped with his forked tongue. Come browse my wares. Every item of purchase, all of his stock, carried with it a tale of incredible utilization against some ailment or injury. Snake venom that reduces inflammation, a variant of the oriental snake oil, leeches that clean blood in infected areas and re-inject stronger nutrient-filled cells, rabbit dung, elephant urine, unicorn horn. He claimed to own a piece of palliative care from every corner of the earth. A fallacy all. He was a con man who could no more cure the common cold than he could keep consistency. No doubt he had suckered in several of those doctors who adopted my persona. He believed he could do the same with me. So when he presented arsenic as a way to ease sore throats, I implored him to please demonstrate.
And did he?
If there was one positive I can give to that cretin, he is very dedicated, much like my